Guys, here with Van
Hey.
Doe. Did I say your name right?
Yeah, go.
Okay, Van Doe from Auckland, New Zealand. She's originally from San Jose area, but she's out here on vacation, and it's rare to meet good jiu-jitsu players. It's really rare to meet good female jiu-jitsu players and get to train with them. We got to train last night and today, and it was show us some new tricks and transitions. That was really cool. Tell us how you got into jiu-jitsu, and just kind of your progression, if you don't mind, with jiu-jitsu.
Okay, well, I started with kickboxing, and I really like kickboxing, and then my coach trained in San Jose with Kung Lee. He was a famous kickboxing coach. And he brought in Garth Taylor, who was a BJJ black belt under Claudio Franza. And I took a look and I said, what's that? That looks weird. Just really got into it, took my first class, and we learned the guillotine. It was just like addictive right then.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn more and more. And I kind of kept it separate for a little bit, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, and then kind of merged them, did a little stint in MMA. And then I started to feel wear on my body, so I thought, okay, jiu-jitsu is probably a better way to continue my training. So I just took it all the way to the top, just kept training. Fell in love with it.
Now, how often did you train? Where were you training at the time? Or like, where have you been training? Could you fill us in on those?
Yeah. I was training like 2 or 3 times a week, not really a whole lot serious because I was still doing kickboxing. Then I wasn't really serious until I moved to New Zealand 8 years ago, and I started to teach jiu-jitsu as part of the club that my husband and I opened up. And then I got into it more, just the whole art of it.
Yeah.
Not really the competitive side, but just learning more about it.
What do you mean by that?
Well, there's a certain art to it. There's an understanding, there's a technical understanding, but then there's an art of how you put it together and you weave it together to make it your own unique style, which is the part I really love about it because I have a smaller frame, more flexible, and some of those things can just counter the bigger guys, the stronger guys.
What's the name of your club that you guys have?
Right, we have an MMA gym. It's not really a club.
Okay.
Auckland MMA in Auckland, so come on down and train with us. I'm part of a bigger jiu-jitsu team, Tukaha. They're the second largest jiu-jitsu team in New Zealand, and Pedro Fernandez runs that. He's a Brazilian 4th degree black belt. He's the one that gave me my black belt. So he's really good to train to as well. The whole club is good. So if you're in New Zealand and you're interested in training in jiu-jitsu, come see Tukaha, Tukaha Jiu-Jitsu.
What does Tukaha mean?
It's a Maori word. I don't know what it means.
Okay.
So Pedro chose it.
Okay. Sounds cool. Is that the rash guard that you were wearing yesterday?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm more interested in we're talking about the art and embracing your own style. What are some things that you do in your teaching? What are some things that you do? Well, first of all, what are some things that you do in your teaching that you would maybe emphasize in teaching the art rather than maybe a competitor, or are they the same?
It's different. You're more open to things. So when you teach your students, it's a little bit of rote learning where you say step 1, step 2, step 3, but then you start explaining things as they progress in their memorization of the drill, because when they start to use it in rolling, it's not all there, and they can't figure out why. So then you start to explain little bit by bit why things don't work when they try this and that, and it varies with the reaction of the opponent. So I love that aspect of it, where you could help a student progress more than just showing them techniques, but moving into concept as well. You have to do both. You can't do all concept and all drilling. You have to actually do both.
Yeah.
I figured that out, and there's an art in teaching that too.
Yeah.
So I like that art where I can convey that in my own personal style to the student so he can grasp it in his way.
What are some ways, I'm trying to think, what are some important concepts that you would emphasize in your teaching? So you talked about concepts a little bit, and you're supposed to just drilling certain positions or techniques, and then speaking about concepts. What are some concepts that you find yourself continually emphasizing, or things that you notice students struggling with in their jiu-jitsu?
Right. Reaction. So it's trial and error. When you try something and it doesn't work, you investigate, much like the way you were teaching last night. You investigate, you talk to your peers, you talk to your coach, and you build a picture of what actually is happening when you do this technique on someone. So I stress, just keep trying it. Just keep trying it, and you'll find out a way to do it better next time. So it's not one shot. Try it, it doesn't work. I've had students who will just say it doesn't work, and they abandon it and they leave, and it does work. You just have to keep figuring out how it works for you.
Yeah. Now having compared to me, you're like half my size. But I was playing a lot of guard, and you're playing on top, and I felt like your base was just incredibly solid, right? What are some things that you're doing conceptually there, or what are some things that you're doing
I think
drilling wise?
it's more of awareness. So the reason why it feels like my base is good is because I'm aware of what you do. I know what you want. I know what you need to tip me over. So just very subtle things to counterbalance it before you tip me, before you do that. So that only comes with mat time. What can I say?
Yeah.
You just have to experience it. I mean,
Is there a way to like, I don't like the word hack, but is there a way to like, hack that and be more efficient in your training, so that maybe it took you 8 years to be able to do that, but is there a way for someone to be able to do it in 6 or 4?
I think so. I think if you just open yourself up to the way other people do it. Watch YouTube, watch instructionals. You just get a wider base of what the technique is about, just a bigger perspective than just the way your teacher taught. So if you learn what's important to other teachers, then you build a better picture. Like, I don't mind doing the fundamentals class that I did today, because I got to see what Aaron thought was important. And the fundamentals yesterday, I got to see what he thought was important. So it helps me discover what is important about that move.
Sure.
Yeah, so just open yourself up to learning from others is my hack.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I like that.
Don't just try what your teacher says, and just do it over and over. Just see what other people do.
Yeah. Now, in that though, how important is it to like narrow your focus on a specific area? So, let's say you're working on a guard pass, right? Are you just focused? Are you going to be focused on acquiring that technique?
Yes.
But at the same time, maintaining kind of an open mind to getting input from elsewhere.
That's important too, because everything connects. I'm finding as I, learn more and more, that everything is connected.
Yeah.
So you focus on one thing, like the other month I was focused on 50-50, that's all I was doing. But I was also doing other stuff, trying other stuff in class, because it all connects, and I find how it connects back to 50-50.
Yeah.
So focus is important, because you got to work out the kinks of a particular move or guard or technique. But you have to, see how it connects to the other moves too. So don't just narrow yourself only. Keep yourself open at all times. You never know where your ideas come from.
Yeah. Now, having that mindset, how does that? Do you find that translates into other areas of your life? So not just on the mat, but like in other things.
Yeah. If I can be Zen.
Okay.
It's learning Jiu Jitsu has been eye-opening for me in the way you just learn things in general. I mean, there's the concept of the 4 stages of learning.
Okay.
It applies everywhere. First stage is unconscious incompetence.
Okay.
Second stage is conscious incompetence. Third stage is conscious competence, and the 4th stage is unconscious competence.
Oh, cool.
Where that's kind of equivalent to the black belt stage, where you just do stuff and you don't realize you're doing it, you just do it, and it works.
Yeah.
Whereas the white belt, the absolute beginner, unconscious incompetence. They don't know what they don't know, so they think they're all that. So it's kind of it's funny, but it works all through all aspects of any kind of discipline that you learn, whether it be martial arts or learning a new language, all that. But it's what I'm finding is that jiu-jitsu in a way is sort of how we, I relate it to how we live life, just in general.
Yep, sorry.
That's my
Do you need to get it?
No, I don't.
Okay, it's okay.
Shut up. So, you start out in life, you don't know what's what. You're just a little kid. You're just, teenager, angry at everything, angry at everyone, and you start, in your 20s, you start learning how to work with people, and then in the 30s, you start to develop sort of like a compassion, empathy for people going through the same stuff that you went through. And then in your older age, you start to go, oh yeah, you're more patient, you're more understanding. It's just kind of like that way with going through the belts, you know? If we stay at each belt for many years, there's a reason for that. You just don't get your black belt in 2 years.
Right.
Because it's a growth, just a general growth process. And it very much relates to life, how we grow in life. You can't just rush through adulthood in your teens. You have to live it, right?
Yeah.
And then you start to understand other people who are going through the same things you did.
Yeah.
And you help them.
Yeah. That peer-to-peer, student-to-teacher dynamic, you kind of touched on that. How do you emphasize that in your teaching or at your dojo? Is there anything specific that you do to get them to interact and communicate together about a technique, or is it just kind of left on their own to think about it?
Well, I show them the technique. I try to explain rudimentary concepts. I let them do it. They kind of fumble around with it, and I see what they're doing wrong, and then I come around and I correct a little bit more, and I just keep reiterating, coming back. And I encourage them to discuss it with each other, even though it might be wrong. They have to go through the process. It's
part
a
of the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They might explain it to their buddy wrong.
Yeah.
It's okay. I don't get mad.
Yeah.
I just let them go through it, and then I come by and I give them my input and let them develop their own idea of what works. So I don't correct them as often as I did when I first started teaching. It's just learning how to let them make their own mistakes.
Yeah. It's more of like, it's teacher-led, but the students take ownership in their learning.
Yes, that's what I encourage all students to do, is take ownership of your learning. No one's responsible for your learning but you.
Yeah. So. I like that. I have a few more questions, but I can't think of it right now. Anything that you'd like to add about, about training jiu-jitsu, about competing in jiu-jitsu, about learning jiu-jitsu that you find is important or helpful for either for yourself or for other people? You feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, you need to decide that you need to find the beauty in it. And even if you don't find beauty in it at first, just keep at it, because someday it'll come. Someday you'll decide, well, this is really cool. I'm glad I stuck with it. So it's hard enough getting someone to get started and getting past that white belt stage, but to keep with it, keep going. At blue belts they all start disappearing. Less likely at purple belt, but at blue belt life gets in the way and stuff. Just keep it in the background, because when you have time to get with it, get back to it, and start discovering the beauty of it, you'll start spending more time, and the more time you spend with it, the better you get, and the more understanding you have. So there's two ways to do. I like it for just the whole art, the technique, the understanding. I wouldn't call it pure jiu-jitsu, but it's more of the art form. I'm not into competing as much, although I will help the competitor. I will help them strategize and stuff. As a competitor, you should, if all you want to do is win tournaments, then just focus on the techniques that get you to win the tournaments. But at the same time, if you're competing and you're training to compete all the time, you don't open yourself up to all the new stuff that you could learn. So, right, and if you don't learn new stuff, then you don't really grow. You just get better at being a better athlete. So.
Yeah, it's difficult to expand your kind of I know.
I'd say maybe if you're a competitor, spend half 6 months out of the year competition training is what you do, and then 6 months exploring,
Huh.
doing other stuff. Because
Yeah.
the other stuff that you explore might end up being in your game.
Right. Right. That's a good way of thinking about it. I like that. One more thing. As a female in jiu-jitsu, I mean, is it different? Is it what's what is different?
Yeah, it's a
the
little
same?
different. I mean, there's obviously the size difference,
Yeah.
the muscle difference. It makes a difference there. But females, if you're not the type to be comfortable being around very close quarters, then it's not for you. I have to say, because I spent countless classes on females, just pouring my time into them and getting them, trying to get them into it.
Yeah.
And in the end, all they want to do is train with females, or they're
Yeah.
just like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
So my energy gets wasted, and I say that this just takes a certain type of female who's open and to the close contact that will appreciate it. The other ladies, they may come to like jiu-jitsu if they keep at it, but you have to be close. You have to be okay with training with men. You have to be able to train with all body types, because all body types help you. There's a certain quota. I always tell myself there's a certain quota of big, bulky, strong men that you need to roll with. You just need to. You have to, because you can't avoid them forever. Then there's the technical roles that you get with higher advanced belts, and then there's people your size. So the quota, I meet my quota of all three of those. I try to at least every week. I don't do too much of one thing, one type of body.
Yeah.
So.
That's really good advice.
And it is your body, so if you don't want to roll with someone, that's fine.
Yeah.
But don't be closed off and don't say I'll never roll with that guy, that type again. You can say I'll never roll with that guy,
Right.
but don't say you'll never roll with that type.
Right.
You'll need to roll with that type. Maybe
Yeah.
that guy's a creep, so yeah,
Sure.
stay away. But
Sure.
roll with everyone.
That's really good advice. How is, and this is there may be nothing different here, but how is female jiu-jitsu different from male jiu-jitsu, or is there a difference?
I find there's a little bit of difference. Males tend to move a lot. They just go. Females like to hunker down and they like to control
Yeah.
the body movement. So spider guards are very popular with females
Okay.
because it allows them to keep the distance
Okay.
and not be passed at the same time. So
Yeah.
I've met some really good spider guard players. I don't play spider guard myself because my fingers are like
Mangled?
worn out.
Yeah.
But females tend to play spider guard a lot, and they try to control movement and distance with their legs. And the guys, they just like to ooh, ole, ole, ole.
Yeah.
I find that.
Yeah. No, I see that. Interesting. This is really informative. Thank you very
No
much.
problem. I really enjoyed training with you
Thank you.
and everyone here. They're really nice, open people. The vibe is good.
Thanks.
I like training here.
Yeah, good.
I like
You're
the
always
vibe.
welcome.
Thank you.
How can people find out about training in New Zealand? Could you just give us a little information about that?
No problem. If you go and Google, Jiu-Jitsu New Zealand, you'll get a bunch of pages that list a lot of the gyms that are around there. So, like I said, Tukaha is my team, so those guys are really open. But there are other clubs down there, depending on where you go in New Zealand too. So they're different places. We're not as backwards as some people think. It's developing, so you can get a good workout there. Not as good as here or not as good as Australia, but still growing.
Yeah, it's a growing art, that's for
Yeah.
sure. Thank you very much.
No problem.